Greetings, Earthlings. Just kidding. Mostly. Where on planet Earth are you watching this? Let me know in the comments section. Also, please consider sending this to a friend. It helps my channel immensely. Let's get started. My name is Paul Andrews, and what follows is the story of how my marriage unraveled, driven in large part by my ex-wife's troubling habits when it came to personal hygiene. Her name is Sarah Ridgway Andrews. We met through a blind date that was arranged by mutual friends. Sarah had recently earned her degree in business management and had just started a junior management program at First United National Bank. I was new in town myself, having joined the team at Allied Accounting not long before. One of my co-workers, Steve, thought we might be a good match, so he set up a double date with his girlfriend, Brenda, who had been dating Steve for about 6 months. They figured Sarah and I would get along well since we had some things in common. Watching an accountant and a corporate trainee try to spark chemistry on a blind date is about as thrilling as it sounds. From the beginning, it was obvious that neither of us had any intention of getting physically involved that night. I wouldn't have minded taking things a bit further with this somewhat plain-looking blonde, but Sarah made it clear she wasn't comfortable with any kind of physical touch. If there was any figure to appreciate, it was hidden beneath a shapeless sweater, a conservative skirt, and a blazer that practically screamed, "Do not disturb." Nevertheless, our conversation was surprisingly engaging. We spent most of the evening discussing our ambitions and the paths we hoped our careers would take. It turned out that our goals were more aligned than either of us had expected. We both came from working-class families and grew up in small towns. I dreamed of becoming an entrepreneur and using my accounting skills to find profitable investments. Sarah's vision was more traditional. She wanted to build a stable life, gradually climbing the career ladder and taking time off only when it was time to have children. That part reassured me a little. It meant we would be intimate at least a few times, enough to get pregnant, maybe more, if I was lucky. At the end of the date, I walked her to her apartment door. She gave me a polite but distant hug and thanked me for the evening. It wasn't exactly romantic, but it beat drinking a six-pack alone in front of the TV. When Monday rolled around, Steve stopped by my cubicle and held out his hand for a high five. Assuming he had a great weekend with Brenda, I returned the gesture and said, "Sounds like Saturday was a hit for you." He laughed and said, "It was fine, but I'm actually here to congratulate you. Apparently Sarah hasn't stopped talking about you to Brenda. She told her to tell me to tell you to give her a call. It's like junior high all over again, right?" To be honest, I hadn't thought the date had gone particularly well, but clearly Sarah saw something I didn't. So I figured I'd call her and see where it led. Maybe there was more potential than I'd realized. A few months into the relationship, I finally got to peel back the layers, literally. Sarah opened up to me about her past, telling me that during her senior year of high school, she had developed a curvy figure and was constantly subjected to unwanted touching and inappropriate attention. As a defense mechanism, she adopted a modest wardrobe to avoid being sexualized. But once those barriers were down, what we found was something genuine, a deeply satisfying sexual relationship paired with an emotional bond rooted in trust, admiration, and real affection. We fell for each other, hard. Naturally, marriage followed. We had 2 daughters, Hannah and Miranda. Our physical relationship stayed passionate even after the kids arrived. We purchased a home together and eventually added a minivan to complete the family image. Sarah's career trajectory continued upward, with each new role bringing added responsibility. I was progressing at Allied Accounting too, and was eventually granted time off to finalize the requirements for my CPA license. The owner of the firm, Mr. Karstadt, took a special interest in me. He became more than just a boss. He served as a mentor, teaching me more about business and professional conduct than any classroom ever could. One evening, after work had wrapped up for the day, he invited me out for dinner. Over the meal, he shared something unexpected. He was in the midst of selling the firm to a national accounting corporation. "Paul," he said, looking directly at me, "you're the most promising person on my staff, But under the new ownership, your potential will be wasted. They'll stifle your entrepreneurial drive and slowly turn you into someone who dreads coming into the office. You need to make your exit before the deal goes through. Build something for yourself. You have the mindset and talent. Start thinking about your next move, seriously. I'll make sure some of the clients leave with you, just so you don't end up going hungry. That line hit me like a punch I didn't see coming. I was so caught off guard, all I could muster was a quiet, "Thanks." Hearing something like that from a man I looked up to and truly admired meant more than I could put into words. Sarah and I spent the entire weekend in what was supposed to be a conversation, but felt more like an ongoing debate about the direction I was heading. Her stance was firm. Stick with the new firm. Don't risk everything on some unpredictable business venture. Put in the work, stay the course, and let the promotions come in time. She made a solid case. Steady salary, benefits, job security, and the predictability that comes with being a CPA at a reputable firm. It made sense on paper. But it wasn't what I wanted for the rest of my life. I looked her in the eye and told her the truth. "Sarah, I'm afraid I'll start resenting it all. The routine, the repetition, the endless flow of debits and credits. This might be my one shot to finally chase the thing I've been dreaming about since high school. I want to build something of my own. I'll start small, working from home, and grow it until I can afford office space." She wasn't swayed. "Paul, this is a reckless move. We've got 2 young kids depending on us now. We can't afford to take these kinds of risks anymore," she said with the no-nonsense tone of someone who's spent years in banking. But the need inside me was real and urgent. If I didn't take the leap now, I knew I never would. Eventually, she gave in, though not with any enthusiasm. "I still think it's foolish," she told me, "but I won't stand in your way. Just make sure you figure it out. Don't come looking to me for financial support either. I'm opening a new checking account where my paycheck goes. I'll cover half the bills, and the rest is on you." I said, "I'll do my best, Sarah." But what I really wanted to say was, "Thanks for the vote of confidence." And just to drive the point home, she added one last condition. She flat out refused to co-sign for any loans. "If this blows up," she warned, "you're going down alone. Don't drag me with you." Her tone was ice cold. So I made a quiet decision then and there. Not only would I not involve her financially, but I wouldn't even use her bank. If she wanted to be on the outside, so be it. I had a feeling she'd change her tune once the profit started rolling in. That first year nearly broke me. I made barely enough to call it a business. Sarah's income carried the household, and my contributions were scattered and inconsistent. But by the second year, I started pulling ahead of her financially, and even then, she wasn't impressed. If anything, she seemed to resent that I'd chosen volatility over dependability. She'd rather I earned less and brought home a steady paycheck. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I was moving beyond basic accounting and into something far more dynamic. Business consulting became my focus, structuring deals, guiding investment decisions, shaping strategy. It was the kind of work I had always hoped I'd get to do. As my revenue climbed, I kept my personal salary at a fixed level, equal to what Sarah earned, and put any surplus into startups. I was strategic with these early-stage investments. I often waived or reduced my consulting fees in exchange for ownership stakes. Typically, I aimed for 5% to 15% equity in exchange for my time and services, and I'd offer ongoing accounting support at a reduced rate. Everyone benefited. Startups preserved cash during critical stages, and they had someone experienced in their corner helping them navigate decisions. Of course, I couldn't audit any business I held equity in. Too much potential for conflict. But that didn't bother me. The upside from equity appreciation far outweighed any fees I might have charged. Our agreements were simple. I could be bought out at any time based on fair market valuation. There was only one person who didn't like this setup: Sarah. She disapproved of me putting money into unproven companies. Eventually, I stopped even trying to explain. She'd look over my firm's revenue reports and assume I wasn't making what I should. She couldn't see the broader strategy. I wasn't chasing monthly income. I was building long-term wealth. The problem was, my balance sheet didn't show what my investments were really worth. The equity I earned through sweat equity showed up on paper at near zero value. But my business was thriving. I had a dependable, intelligent team that handled the day-to-day work without constant oversight. That gave me something I hadn't expected. Time. Time to be a present father. Tax season was still brutal, of course. For those 3 months, I lived and breathed the job. But once April passed, I made it a priority to show up. For everything. I was there for the kids' concerts, school plays, and ball games. I never missed a parent-teacher meeting, even when Sarah did. Those were genuinely good years. The kids brought joy into my life. Sarah and I had our ups and downs, but compared to most couples juggling careers and family, we were managing. In the meantime, Sarah continued climbing the ladder at the bank. Her dedication and skill didn't go unnoticed. She earned a promotion to assistant vice president and started overseeing a small team. She'd worked hard for it, and I gave her full credit for the accomplishment. After her promotion, Sarah decided it was time for us to move into a bigger, more upscale home, one she felt better matched her elevated status at the bank. I told her I thought we should hold off for a while. She agreed. At least, that's what she said. But by the following Saturday, she went to a housing expo and, without so much as a conversation with me, signed a contract on a new place. At that point, the decision was no longer theoretical. It had already been made, and I was left to catch up. Because of my role in the Chamber of Commerce, I'd built a few connections with the loan officers at her bank. In one of our casual conversations, they mentioned that Sarah had started calling me her little bookkeeper around the office. That stung. And it wasn't just a joke at work. The dismissiveness crept into our home life too. Her comments became laced with sarcasm, especially when she compared me to more successful accountants she knew, men she clearly held in higher regard than her own husband. She stopped inviting me to her office events. I didn't go to the bank's holiday party, nor the summer gathering. It wasn't so much that I was eager to attend either one, but it was hard to ignore the signal. She didn't want me to be part of that world. It was like she was creating a professional life that didn't include me. The distance between us was growing, and I felt it was time we sat down for a serious conversation about where we were headed. One Saturday, I found her folding a basket of laundry and asked if she could take a few minutes to talk. She glanced up with a trace of annoyance. "Can it wait? I'm trying to finish your laundry," she replied. "I'd really prefer we talk now," I told her. She gave a sigh and said, "Fine. How about tonight? Can you carve out 15 minutes for it then?" As she walked away, she tossed a distracted, "Sure, I can do that," over her shoulder. I made a point not to bring it up again that day. I wanted to use it later, to show her that what was important to me didn't seem important to her. That evening, after the kids were asleep, I brought it up again. She brushed me off once more, saying she was too tired. Sunday morning passed in a blur of getting the girls ready for Sunday school and attending church as a family. There wasn't a moment to bring it up again. Later in the afternoon, once the girls had gone outside to play with the neighborhood kids, I noticed Sarah grabbing her purse and heading for the door. I moved to intercept her. "Do you have a few minutes to talk now?" I asked. She looked irritated. "Why are you still on about this? You're acting like some clingy little kid desperate for attention." "I'm going to my mom's. I told her I'd help balance her checkbook. I'll be back in an hour." "Can it wait?" "It's already been a full day since I asked for just 15 minutes, I replied. "But sure, I'll wait another hour." She didn't come back for 4. When she finally returned, she went straight to the kitchen and began prepping dinner. Once again, the timing was all wrong for a conversation. But midway through the meal, I decided to press the issue. "Now's probably as good a time as any to have that talk," I said. Her eyes narrowed, and she gave me a piercing look of irritation. "I feel like we're growing more distant," I began, "and I'm seriously worried about where we're headed." She dropped her fork onto her plate with a loud clank, and both of our daughters froze, staring at me in alarm. "We don't talk like we used to," I went on. "And I get this growing sense that you've stopped respecting me, not just as a partner but as your husband. I think we need to be honest with each other before this disconnect gets worse." Her jaw stiffened. "This is completely inappropriate," she snapped. "I can't believe you'd bring this up with the girls sitting right here. You should be ashamed of yourself." "I've been trying to have this conversation for over 30 hours, I said quietly. "And each time, you've shut me down. I'm asking you now, honestly, is there something going on that I should know about?" She didn't say a word. She stood up, took her plate to the sink, and walked out of the house without a backward glance. So much for the 15-minute talk I'd asked for. We barely made it to minute 2. The girls sat frozen, still absorbing what had just happened. Miranda's eyes welled up as she turned to me. "Are you and Mom getting divorced?" she asked, her voice trembling. I leaned forward and answered gently, "No, sweetheart. No one's getting divorced. You know how you and Hannah fight sometimes? Grown-ups argue too. But that doesn't mean we don't care about each other. And it definitely doesn't mean we don't love you and your sister." "Mom didn't leave for good," I added. "She just needed to go for a drive." That seemed to soothe their nerves a bit. Mine, however, remained completely unsettled. After dinner, I did the dishes, knocked out a little work in my office, and got the girls tucked into bed. When I finally went to the bedroom, I lay down alone. If Sarah didn't want to share the room, she could take the couch. It was nearly midnight when she finally came in. She stripped down and walked quietly toward the bed. I lifted the blanket, inviting her to slip in beside me. Nestling close, she murmured, "I'm not saying I was wrong, but I'll try to give you the respect I expect from my husband." I wrapped an arm around her and whispered back, "That sounds perfect. I only want to be the kind of husband you'd be proud of." That brief exchange seemed to ease the tension between us, for the time being anyway. Update 1. About 2 years later, she earned a promotion to vice president of the bank's compliance department. The new position tasked her with overseeing the bank's adherence to regulations issued by the FDIC, the Federal Reserve, and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. Her rigid mindset made her a natural for the role. To her, if something wasn't explicitly authorized by a regulatory body, it was automatically out of bounds. I operated under a different philosophy. If the rulebook didn't forbid it, it was fair play. Unsurprisingly, those clashing outlooks started causing strain in our home life. Thankfully, she remained unaware of the investments I'd been making. There was nothing illegal about them, but given her tendency to panic over finances, she'd never have approved. It was around this time that she started going out every Tuesday evening with her circle of girlfriends. At first, she came home at a normal hour, but gradually, those nights got longer and later. By then, our kids were 14 and 16, no longer toddlers, but still in need of active parenting. I was always the one holding down the fort. One Tuesday night, I heard angry shouting echo from the master bathroom upstairs. Alarmed, I went up to check what was going on. She was at the sink, muttering profanities under her breath. "Duck! Duck! Duck!" "What happened?" I asked. She turned toward me with the expression of someone who just stepped in something foul and snapped, "My ducking wedding ring fell down the drain. Can you get it out, or should I just call a plumber?" The insult didn't go unnoticed. Keeping my voice level, I replied, "If it's stuck in the trap, I can get it out. It won't take long." But she cut me off with an icy, dismissive tone. "Forget it. I won't be needing it tonight anyway." That hit like a punch to the gut. She was heading out, but didn't need her wedding ring? Instantly, alarm bells went off in my head. Still, given her foul mood, I didn't press the issue. I kept quiet, but mentally took note. As I glanced into the bedroom, I saw her putting on a skimpy thong, one I didn't recognize. She made sure to get changed where I couldn't see. "Out with the girls again?" I asked. "Same as every Tuesday. You already know," she replied, keeping her eyes averted. There was nothing more I could say in that moment. I headed out to the garage to grab a pair of plumber's pliers. By the time I came back, she was already gone. Didn't even say goodbye. The clogged drain was on her side of our dual sink setup, so I had to clear some of her things to access the plumbing underneath. While moving her toiletries aside, I spotted a plain brown box stashed behind the extra rolls of toilet paper. I opened it and was stunned. Inside was a combo enema and douche set. What the duck? She'd long complained about gut issues, IBS, chronic diarrhea. I used to joke silently that she had irritable Bish syndrome. But since when did she need a douche? As I looked closer, I noticed the nozzle on the enema bulb was damp. I froze. So this really is happening. They say the husband's always the last to find out. Maybe that was true. Still, at this point, I didn't have hard proof, just signs pointing in a terrible direction. Whenever I explored a new business venture, I made sure to gather every detail, both potential gains and the risks involved. That's how I decided to handle this situation too. I needed to start collecting facts, but not right this minute. I still had to retrieve the ring. Maybe she'd want it back, or maybe not. Either way, time would give me answers. Before putting the brown box back in its place, I made a pencil mark on the floor to track any movement. I also snapped a few photos of how I found the items, so I'd know if anything changed later. She didn't come home until nearly midnight. Without a word, she undressed, shut the bathroom door behind her, and turned on the shower. I lay perfectly still, pretending to sleep. But if she had touched my chest, she would have felt my heart pounding like a jackhammer. She dropped onto the bed with such force that I instinctively acted as though she'd roused me from sleep. Then I heard her chuckle faintly. Figures. The next morning, I was up at dawn. Not because I was well rested, but because I hadn't really managed to sleep. I made a point of shutting the bathroom door before starting my shower, though my true intention was to check the brown box again. Just as I suspected, it had been nudged out of its usual position. The nozzle from the douche was still moist, and the box had shifted by about an inch. One cleansing before going out, and another before climbing into bed. Someone was putting in quite a bit of effort to stay fresh. Using a Ziploc bag, I carefully picked up her rancid-smelling thong, planning to have it tested for semen. It had been nearly 3 weeks since I'd last finished inside her, so if there was any trace, it wouldn't be from me. As a CPA, I had a solid understanding of how property divisions played out during a divorce. I'd worked on valuations from both sides, husbands and wives alike. Sarah would likely be awarded the house until our girls finished college, possibly longer. I'd be assigned child support payments and reduced visitation. Depending on how the court assessed my investment accounts, spousal support might not be on the table. She had dismissed those accounts as worthless, just like the way she saw me. But I had no intention of funding her love nest while another man enjoyed her company in the same house where my daughters lived. That wasn't going to happen. Update 2. Armed with the evidence I needed, it was time to initiate the plan. My top priority was straightforward: secure primary custody of my daughters. I could rebuild my finances. I'd already proven I could. I'd also demonstrated that I was more than capable as a father. Now I had to prove that Sarah wasn't fit to parent them. What I envisioned wasn't physical sabotage. It was psychological strategy. Sarah was obsessive when it came to control. In her world, perfection wasn't optional. It was expected. She demanded it from her team at work, from me, from our kids, and especially from herself. When even minor things went off course, she unraveled. And when she unraveled, she lashed out. That temper didn't just fall on me. It hit her staff, and even our children. My plan was to let her self-destruct, to allow her own anger to drive a wedge between her and the girls, until they naturally preferred staying with me. If I could manage that, I'd win custody and keep the home. Quietly, I walked over to her nightstand and turned off the alarm. Sarah had zero tolerance for being late, After whatever late-night activities she'd been up to, she'd probably want to sleep in. When the girls came down for breakfast and asked where she was, I casually told them she got in late and probably needed a little more rest. They understood. They liked sleeping in too when they could. Later that morning, I scrolled through her recent text exchanges, then queued up one of her video playlists and turned the volume all the way down. If I was lucky, her phone battery would be drained before she realized. She had a recurring Wednesday morning team meeting, one she insisted was non-negotiable. About an hour later, I heard her shout my name, laced with profanity. Apparently, I was the reason she'd overslept, never mind her late return the night before. I ducked into the garage to avoid the storm brewing inside. While I was there, I let just enough air out of one of the Lexus's tires to trigger the dashboard sensor. Sarah despised any warning lights on her car display. It would nag her the entire commute. She didn't spare Hannah or Miranda from her outburst as she flew through the house in chaos, simultaneously trying to get dressed, do her hair, and put on makeup. As she ranted and raved, I quietly locked the garage door from the inside. Just as I predicted, she stormed out, hit the opener, and didn't even realize the door hadn't moved. She reversed right into it, crumpling the bottom two sections. The crash got all three of us to the door. We stood there watching as she banged the steering wheel in frustration, though we couldn't hear a word through the glass. She finally pulled the car forward, and I manually raised the door and shoved the damaged panels roughly back into place, making a loud grinding sound as I did. She sped out of the driveway, coming dangerously close to the mailbox. Even after the car disappeared down the street, we could still hear her shouting. I found myself thinking, this might actually be kind of fun. I wondered how she'd handle trying to reach the office with a dead phone. The less contact from her today, the better. I turned to the girls and pulled them into a hug. "Mom's just under a lot of pressure right now," I said softly. "She'll probably feel better after work. She still loves you, even if she's not exactly thrilled with me at the moment." The three of us shared a laugh. The alarm clock on our nightstand was now cranked to its loudest setting. I figured she could be the one to make sure it was actually activated this time. Unlike Sarah, I managed to leave on time for work that morning. My staff can always tell, when I stroll in humming a tune, it's a sign the day's off to a good start. That mood carried through until around 10, when my phone started vibrating across the desk like it was trying to launch itself onto the floor. I assumed it was my loving wife checking in. "Morning, sweetheart," I said as I picked up, only to be met with an earful of foul language. With her voice raised to a screech, she snapped, "Get your ass over here right now and fix my damn tire. I almost died in that piece of junk you make me drive. If you'd let me buy that Mercedes I wanted, this never would have happened. Fix it." I stayed calm. "You've got roadside assistance with ALAA. Call them. That's what they're for." She snapped, "Go to hell." From her tone alone, I knew there was zero chance of anything romantic happening that night. So much for the good vibes I'd started the day with. I told my assistant I had some errands to handle and wouldn't be back until after lunch. My first stop was a local security store, where I picked up several small surveillance cameras and a compact voice recorder that could easily be hidden in her purse. It was time to start gathering intel and keeping tabs on the opposition. Back home, I installed the cameras, one in the living room, another discreetly positioned in our bedroom. I also went ahead and fixed the dented panels on the garage door. Mechanically, it worked fine now, but the visual damage remained, a quiet, visible reminder to the neighbors that someone had backed into it like an idiot. Once I got back to the office, I reviewed all of our financial documents, focusing especially on the accounts tied to her. We only had one credit card in both our names, and I canceled it immediately. Our joint checking account, which we used solely for household bills, was left untouched, but I made a mental note to verify she was still depositing her share every payday. As usual, I got home before she did. I was getting dinner ready when I heard the garage door screech open, followed by heavy, impatient footsteps stomping through the house like a SWAT raid. The girls, seated at the kitchen table, jumped and screamed. Sarah, now in a rage, stormed into the room and glared at me. "That was the worst day of my life, damn it," she hissed. "I'm going upstairs to lie in the bath." Dinner that night was a hushed affair, just me and the girls speaking in whispers like we were kids hiding from a monster under the bed. Later, I went upstairs and asked if she wanted a plate. She flung a bar of soap in my direction and snarled, "If I wanted food, I'd ask. Now get the hell out." Perfect. While she simmered in the bath, I used a small blade to slit open a seam in the lining of her handbag. I slid the voice recorder inside and stitched it back just enough to keep the opening hidden. Then I headed downstairs and made up the couch in the den. No way was I sharing a bed with her, especially not with that alarm set to go off like a siren the next morning. Update 3. At dawn, a thunderous explosion of a rough rap track came from the bedroom, followed by my wife's scream, "You bastard!" The girls at the end of the hallway screamed in fear. Even a Marine Corps drill instructor couldn't have manufactured a more chaotic wake-up call than what happened in our house that morning. While Sarah furiously rattled drawers and flung bottles around the bathroom, I slipped into the garage. I scooped a hefty glob of grimy, dark grease from under the riding mower and smeared it across the driver's seat of her car. By the time she sat down and made it to work, it had looked like she'd had a serious accident, this time quite literally, not just figuratively. Just to complete the narrative, I also dabbed a bit of the same grease onto the skirt she'd worn the day before. That way, if someone noticed, she'd have something, or someone, to blame. Sure enough, her assistant Linda, who happened to be married to a buddy of mine, called with an update. Sarah had flipped out the moment she spotted the skirt. "Brace yourself," Linda said. "Hurricane Sarah just made landfall. Everyone's diving for cover." For the next several days, I took it down a notch. No major moves, just quiet, strategic annoyances. One of her diamond earrings mysteriously vanished. Just one, the pair no longer complete. A splash of red wine appeared on the dress she'd worn the previous Tuesday. Odd, since she couldn't recall spilling a drop. And then there was her favorite pair of shoes. The inner lining began to peel unexpectedly, like they'd started to betray her too. I was well aware of where she kept that small notebook filled with all her login credentials. So when she was out driving her Lexus, I took quiet advantage of that fact, especially knowing how her apps often signed her out every time she hit the brakes or made a sharp turn. Inside the door panel of her car, a loose ball bearing rolled back and forth, creating a faint but persistent rattle, just enough to get under her skin. Little by little, I engineered minor inconveniences that felt random. Small mishaps that seemed like bad luck, but were anything but. Then came the real test. On a Tuesday evening after work, she dressed up for what she claimed was girls' night, and slipped out of the house without saying a word to anyone. As usual, she made a point of locking the bathroom door before undressing. Everything mirrored the prior Tuesday. Same timing, same routine, even the same damp enema nozzle left in its usual place. But this time, I was ready. I followed her movements remotely through the location services on her cell phone. Her first stop was Bonefish Grill. From there, she drove to a dance club called O'Hara's. I wasn't concerned with what happened inside. I wasn't interested in her dance moves. I needed to see who she left with. Tracking her from the house, I decided it was time to see it firsthand. I got in the car and drove out toward the club, planning to shadow her from there. From the parking lot, coffee in hand, I watched as she emerged with a man. They were walking close, arms entwined, and they shared a slow, lingering kiss before parting. He got into his car, and she followed behind in hers. I trailed them discreetly, keeping my distance, letting her phone's GPS do most of the work. Eventually, they pulled into the lot of a Motel 6 near the highway. From where I was parked on the street, I could see them enter a room with outside access. No hesitation. Knowing they'd be holed up inside for a while, I stayed put. I noted the man's vehicle, make, model, and license plate, all carefully documented. Then I got to work on a few subtle touches. I let just enough air out of her front tire to ensure the pressure warning light would blink at her later. Nearby, a maintenance truck had left a smear of grease on its bumper. I dabbed a bit onto her windshield, right in the wiper path, knowing it would create a smeared mess the moment she tried to clean it. I also wondered what her voice-activated recorder, tucked in her purse, might have captured. At that point, I was already halfway to collecting everything I'd need to destroy her. She returned after 1 a.m., slamming the bedroom door, stripping down with a fury, then vanishing into the bathroom, no doubt to shower and use a douche again, while leaving her alarm and phone tossed carelessly to look like an accident. Once she was fast asleep, I slipped out of bed and retrieved the voice recorder from her bag. I uploaded the files to my laptop, charged the device, and put it right back where it had been. No sign it had ever been touched. The next morning, after she and the girls had left the house, I sat down and listened. Most of the restaurant and club audio was drowned in background noise, but the motel room? That was crystal clear. I learned his name, Keith, and confirmed what I had suspected. Their affair wasn't a one-off. It was a regular arrangement. They met every Tuesday night like clockwork, and every other Thursday afternoon at the Hyatt during business hours. She was the one booking the rooms, making sure it stayed discreet. They even joked about the bank president being clueless, laughing about how they used company credit cards to pay for their affairs. Keith complimented my accounting skills, sarcastically calling me a genius, while gloating about how often he got to see her. At one point, Sarah made a cruel joke, saying that if I ever found out the number of times Keith had slept with her, my calculator might just explode. She teased Keith about when he'd leave his little bookkeeper husband, clearly referring to me, and he told her it would happen once their daughter Miranda went off to college. She claimed to love her daughters, but then admitted she didn't want to waste her prime years sitting through weekend soccer matches. She called Keith the best mom in the world, even as she confessed she couldn't stand being around me anymore. I had tried everything to light a fire under him, to push him towards something greater, but all he ever seemed to want was to drift through life as a plain, unmotivated man. From where I stood, it looked like he was wasting every opportunity he had. "If you're that dissatisfied with the guy," her friend said, "why not just end the marriage now? Take the child support and spend more time with me." She chuckled softly. "Be realistic," she replied. "Even if I got child support, I'd still be stuck paying for a babysitter, a maid, and someone to cook. But my little pushover handles all of that for free. Plus, he puts his whole paycheck into our joint account. I barely contribute to the bills and get to squirrel away a portion of my income without him noticing. It'll never show up during the divorce. Right now, he's financing my life while I quietly build my exit strategy." Then her voice dropped into something more sly. "Speaking of which, what about your icebox of a wife? When are you pulling the trigger on her?" He smirked. "Already on the calendar. Her father insisted on a prenup before the wedding, and I only agreed when we added a sunset clause, 20 years. Once that expires, I get half her stock portfolio. It's worth millions, just 3 more years." She let out another satisfied laugh. "That's perfect. It'll line up right around the time Miranda starts college. We'll both be free and clear." Hearing their conversation left me speechless. I hadn't realized people could be that calculating and selfish. But honestly, they were a fitting match. Those two would probably end up in a relationship defined by constant manipulation, emotionally, sexually, and financially, each trying to stay one step ahead of the other. They even had a system worked out. To avoid raising suspicion, they alternated making reservations at the same Hyatt hotel room, each booking no more than once a month to avoid patterns. She'd grown paranoid too, double-checking her tires and making sure the garage door opened fully before backing out of the driveway. Despite all that maneuvering, her venom hadn't lessened. She remained just as cruel and disrespectful toward me, and especially toward our daughters. So it came as no shock when the forensic lab confirmed my suspicions. The thong I discreetly collected tested positive for biological evidence that sealed the truth. That was the final confirmation I needed. I called my attorney and began the divorce process. I instructed Jeff Green, my lawyer, to pursue full custody of our daughters, citing the fact that I had been the one primarily raising them. With her track record, it was questionable whether the girls would even want to maintain a strong relationship with her. Jeff replied cautiously, "I'll include that in the petition, but getting full custody won't be easy." My proposed divorce terms were simple. We'd retain joint ownership of the house until both daughters finished college, at which point we'd sell and divide the proceeds. Each of us would keep our own retirement accounts and investments. Because I had deliberately structured my reported income to mirror hers, there would be no claim for spousal support either way. She would, however, be responsible for child support, which included a monthly allowance during college. While we had enough saved for tuition, housing, books, and meal plans, we hadn't accounted for extra expenses like spending money. When she became a full vice president, she opted into the bank's deferred compensation plan. I had no plans to touch that, unless she went after my company shares. If she did, I'd use that account as leverage during the negotiations. Quietly, I began moving valuables and key documents out of the house and into a storage unit. I also started backing up my computer files onto an external drive each evening and kept it separate from my main setup. My intention was to remain in the home, but there was no predicting how Sarah would respond once the papers were served. Following Jeff's advice, I brought on a private investigator to dig into Keith's background, his identity, where he lived, and where he worked. I provided the license plate number from his vehicle to speed things along. Update 4. Each year, as the third quarter drew to a close, Sarah's bank entered its budget planning period. Employees were expected to submit self-evaluations, while departments reviewed their financials and proposed budgets for the upcoming year. Once that process wrapped up, the bank's senior executives hosted a formal dinner and ballroom event at the Hyatt. It was a black tie affair, men in tuxedos, women in evening gowns, and spouses were invited. Most attendees booked rooms to stay overnight at the hotel. Sarah had first mentioned the event years ago, back when she was still far from the upper ranks. But by the time she finally secured her place among senior management, I was no longer considered worthy of accompanying her. Each year she'd make a point of reminding me about the gala, dropping subtle barbs, implying that if I were more successful, perhaps I'd be invited one day. She seemed to think her antics would somehow inspire me, like her social climbing might spark ambition in me. But truthfully, I couldn't have cared less about impressing the social circle she'd chosen. Almost every day, I found myself rifling through her closet and dresser drawers, hunting for more confirmation of her affair. About a week before her big charity function, I uncovered a new shoebox stashed deep in the back of her closet. That was always my first stop when snooping. Inside sat a dazzling pair of Jimmy Choo stilettos, no price tag, no receipt. I looked up the model online and nearly choked at the 4-digit price tag. With the gala fast approaching, I had to think fast. I considered swapping them out for something ridiculous, maybe a crusty pair of lawn clogs or bright yellow Crocs. But in the end, I opted for something more refined. I brought the shoes to my workshop, gently secured one of the heels in a vise, and slowly twisted the spindly thing just a few degrees off-center. Then, I carefully packed them back up and placed the box exactly where I'd found it. After all the experience I'd had handling her hidden brown box, I'd gotten pretty good at tampering without leaving any trace. The day before the event, I got a call from the private investigator I'd hired. He wanted me to stop by his office, said he had something important to show me. Once I was seated, he laid out the findings. Her lover turned out to be none other than Keith Miller, a senior loan officer at Sarah's own bank. That revelation came with serious implications. While he didn't directly report to her, Sarah's job was all about keeping the loan department in compliance, and there was a strict policy against office relationships. The two of them were skating dangerously close to the edge. I told the investigator the information was perfect, then asked if he could set up a few discreet cameras at the Hyatt for the senior management gathering that weekend. He already had a headshot of Sarah and agreed to capture footage of her throughout the evening, especially while dancing and walking around. We both felt good about the plan. He got another payment, and I got another brick of evidence for the eventual takedown of this sham of a marriage. What I watched that Friday night had both of us howling. Sarah looked tipsy, even though I knew she wasn't drunk. That sabotaged heel was pushing her weight unnaturally to one side, throwing off her balance entirely. She teetered through the venue, bumping into tables, staggering into chairs. At one point, she managed to knock over 2 bottles of wine, drenching a group of poor bystanders. I joked that I should send the footage to America's Funniest Videos, assuming she'd ever sign the release form. Which, let's face it, she wouldn't. As expected, the evening wrapped up with Sarah and Keith heading upstairs to his room for what turned into an all-night rendezvous. Everything was caught on camera, thanks to a tiny device planted just under their suite door. Hard to believe the kind of surveillance tech available these days. Although Sarah stumbled in before noon on Saturday, she kept to herself the rest of the day and didn't resurface much until Sunday morning. That's when she made some vague remark about needing to reconnect with her faith and considered going to church, but instead stayed curled up in bed. One thing I'd started noticing was how drained she always looked by midweek, especially on Wednesdays. I figured it probably had something to do with whatever she was getting up to on Tuesday nights. She'd arrive home looking wiped out, say almost nothing, and head straight for a long soak in the tub. But that particular Wednesday, I had a different kind of bath in store. She grunted a lazy acknowledgement as she passed me, her half-hearted version of a greeting, and trudged toward the bathroom. I waited patiently until I heard her adjusting the knobs on the tub, trying to get the water temperature just right. When I heard the sink faucet, I knew she was washing her face. That was my moment. I walked straight to the utility panel. Our plumbing system had a modern wall-mounted manifold, giving me individual control over each water line. I shut off the hot water valve leading to the bathtub and left only the cold line running. As soon as I heard the water shut off, I quickly turned the hot water back on. Seconds later, a blood-curdling scream erupted from the bathroom. "Mother Ducker!" she yelled as she plunged into the icy water. With the bubbles making everything slick, she thrashed about helplessly, clawing at anything she could grab to get herself out of the freezing tub. I ran in, pretending to help. In her panic, she ripped the towel bar right off the wall and lost her grip, plunging back beneath the water with a loud splash. It took every shred of restraint I had not to burst out laughing then and there. Eventually, I managed to haul her out, soaked, swearing, slipping with every step, leaving a trail of water as she staggered across the floor. Her shouting was loud enough to bring both girls running into the bathroom, alarmed. But instead of calming down, she turned her anger on them. "You little brats! You used up all the hot water so I couldn't take a relaxing bath!" she shrieked. She stormed off toward the bedroom, dripping as she went, while the girls stood there crying. They trailed after her, trying to explain that they hadn't touched the water heater, but she snapped back with, "Spare me your lame excuses, just get out of my sight." Her words sent them fleeing down the hallway, still in tears. This was far worse than I had braced for. I thought her rage would be directed at me, but I hadn't expected her to lash out at the kids. That was my mistake. I underestimated how misplaced her fury could become. Then, as if on cue, she turned on me. "What the hell are you gawking at? Can't even fix a damn bathtub? Do you do anything useful around here?" I didn't bother responding. I simply motioned for her to come back into the bathroom. Without saying a word, I turned on the hot water tap. A steady rush of piping hot water came pouring out. I took her hand and placed it beneath the stream, letting the heat run over her skin. "There's plenty of hot water," I told her, locking eyes with her. I left it at that. No further explanation. I walked out, gathered the girls, and drove them away for dinner. They were still crying in the back seat, so I pulled over a few blocks from home and turned to comfort them. "I'm so sorry that happened," I told them gently. "None of it was your fault. You two are amazing girls, and I couldn't be prouder of you. Please try to forgive your mom for what she said, and forgive me too, for not stepping in sooner. I really am sorry." That seemed to help. The sobbing eased, and they began to settle down. Right then I knew I needed a real plan to separate the three of us from Sarah. Quietly, deliberately. Messing with her emotions had become a sort of guilty indulgence, but the consequences were starting to outweigh the satisfaction. By the time we returned later that evening, it was already well past dark. I didn't bother touching the dishes stacked in the kitchen sink. I went straight to the den, crashed on the couch, and tried to get some sleep. Somewhere in the middle of the night, I felt a presence hovering above me. When I opened my eyes, I saw her, Sarah, standing motionless, just watching. My throat was dry. I could barely speak. "Yeah?" was all I could manage. She hesitated before answering, then said quietly, "I shouldn't have yelled at the girls like that. It wasn't their fault. I probably turned the wrong handle." Her voice was low now. "This month has just been hell. Flat tires, the garage door won't work. My favorite heels snapped. It feels like everything's breaking down around me. I'm falling apart. I need to get control of my life again." She didn't wait for me to reply. She just turned and went back upstairs. I suppose that was her version of an apology. Update 5. The following week, a rare opportunity came my way. One of my investment partners gave me a call. He had a 2-bedroom condo in Breckenridge, Colorado, that was suddenly available. It had been booked for the week between Christmas and New Year's, but the renters canceled last minute. He kept their deposit and offered the place to me at half price. I told him I'd need to think about it. Ever since Sarah's outburst, the girls had been quieter, more withdrawn. Even though she'd apologized, her words still echoed in their heads. I sat them down and asked how they'd feel about spending a week in the mountains, just the three of us, skiing and relaxing. Their eyes lit up. "Yes!" they shouted in unison, throwing their arms around me and covering my face in kisses. That evening, I booked round-trip flights for the four of us. Destination: Denver. I even paid extra for flexible cancellation on one of the tickets. I wasn't ready to completely write Sarah off. I figured I'd give her one final chance to show she still wanted to be part of this family. When she got home that night, she had already showered and changed into something more laid back before joining us for dinner. Rather than bring up the trip myself, I decided it would be best if one of the girls asked her. Hannah was the natural pick. She couldn't keep a secret to save her life, and she'd spill it sooner or later anyway. So, right on cue, Hannah chirped, "Mom, Dad got a 2-bedroom condo in Breckenridge for the week between Christmas and New Year's. Can you come with us? It's going to be so much fun." Sarah smiled, then hesitated. Her expression shifted as she weighed her response. Her brow arched slightly, and a calculated little grin spread across her face. "I'd love to, sweetheart," she said with a syrupy tone. "But the end of the year is absolutely critical at the bank. December 31st is when everything has to be balanced, and it's my responsibility to make sure it all checks out. I'm afraid I'll have to stay behind." "I really am sorry," she added, though her voice lacked any real sincerity. I was sorry too, especially for Hannah, whose joy dimmed the moment she heard her mother's answer. Her smile vanished, replaced by a quiet, stinging disappointment. I still regret how Sarah dismissed the invitation with such a weak, half-hearted excuse. Her position in the bank's compliance division had absolutely nothing to do with preparing or reviewing the year-end financial reports. Neither the balance sheet nor the income statement fell under her jurisdiction. The compliance team doesn't deal with numbers at all. You wouldn't even need to be a CPA to understand that. No, what likely caused that raised eyebrow and subtle smirk was the anticipation of having Keith all to herself for 7 nights straight in our bed. The next week, I swapped out the house's old cameras for a Wi-Fi-enabled surveillance system. giving me the ability to monitor everything in real time from Colorado. There was a particular moment I hoped to witness. As we headed to the airport, Sarah put on the perfect performance of the devoted mother, telling the girls to stay safe, hugging them tightly. I, on the other hand, got a quick one-armed embrace and a dry kiss on the cheek. When I told her, "I love you, Sarah," all I got in return was a mechanical, "Love you too." The flight was smooth, and the drive in our rental car to the condo went without a hitch. Hannah and Miranda had never seen the Rockies before. Once we arrived, they hurried onto the deck, breathing in the crisp, pine-scented air and soaking in the sweeping views. Meanwhile, I set up my laptop and connected to the house feed. Right on cue, Sarah returned home at 6 o'clock sharp and immediately made her way to the master bathroom. I had no interest in placing a camera in the bedroom. That wasn't the kind of footage I was after. My setup covered the living room, kitchen, and stairwell. Not long after, I watched her rush down the stairs, shrieking like she'd been burned. She darted to the refrigerator and slammed her hand against the ice dispenser. Eventually, she collapsed against the kitchen cabinets, trying to calm her breathing. I figured Keith might be rethinking their evening plans. It would be unfortunate if their week-long escapade got off to a rocky start. That night, the girls and I strolled through Breckenridge's picturesque downtown, blanketed in a foot of fresh snow and glowing with holiday lights. We grabbed a pizza for dinner, and on our way back to the condo, they heard music thumping from a nearby building. Inside, they spotted a teen lounge, designed as a fun and safe environment where teenagers could hang out while their parents enjoyed more grown-up activities. "Can we go check it out for a bit?" Hannah asked eagerly. I said yes without hesitation. After everything they'd endured lately, they deserved a night of fun. The place buzzed with energy. Kids danced and laughed as upbeat music pulsed through the room. They wanted to stay for a while longer. Not wanting to leave them alone their first night in a new town, I found a seat at a small table near the back and reminded them to check in with me occasionally. The arrangement worked out well. I could respond to a few emails and still keep an eye on them without hovering. The girls were soon dancing and laughing with a couple of teenage boys, clearly enjoying themselves. Every so often they'd glance over and I'd raise my diet soda in a subtle gesture that said, "All good." Other parents were scattered around the room too, casually watching their kids. Across the dance floor, one woman stood out, elegant and striking in a way that turned heads. She and I kept scanning the room, occasionally making eye contact and exchanging polite smiles. Her sons approached her often, asking for snacks, drinks, or a bit of cash. As the evening progressed, my daughters seemed to gravitate toward those boys more than anyone else. While I was wrapping up a text, I noticed the woman approaching. She turned heads as she walked, and when she reached my table, she smiled and said, "You must be Hannah and Miranda's dad. Why don't you come sit with your family instead of sitting here all by yourself?" I returned her smile and tried not to appear too eager. "I'd love that. My girls must feel pretty comfortable around you if they've been spending so much time at your table." "I'm Donna," she said warmly. "Those two are my sons, Zach and Micah, 16 and 14, though you'd think they were legal drinking age the way they act sometimes." I laughed. "Mine are the same age. Funny how that works out." She laughed along with me. "I've really enjoyed chatting with your girls tonight," she said. "They're incredibly kind and well-mannered. You've clearly raised them well." "Thank you," I said sincerely. "And your boys are equally impressive. You should be proud of them too." "Are you just supervising them?" I asked. Donna let out a light laugh and replied, "You catch on quick. It's really nice to meet a father who's just as present with his kids as I am with mine. Since I work from home, I'm the one getting them ready in the mornings and waiting when they return in the afternoons. They get most of my time these days, because right now, they're what matter most." It turned out that Donna and her boys were also spending their first day in Breckenridge, same as us. Our 4 teenagers instantly clicked, and without much help from the adults, they worked out a skiing schedule for the following morning. Donna and I coordinated a few check-in times to keep tabs on them throughout the day, and then made a simple plan. Send them off early, then enjoy a quiet breakfast together before hitting the slopes ourselves a bit later. As the week unfolded, Donna and I spent a lot of time together, gradually opening up and liking what we found in each other. She was easy to confide in, especially when it came to everything going wrong with Sarah and my plans to finally go through with the divorce. I didn't bring up the tactics I'd been quietly using to build a stronger custody case. I wasn't proud of them, but I genuinely believed the girls would be better off living with me than with their self-centered mother. Donna had lost her husband 2 years prior, killed by a drunk driver. Both of us carried our own burdens of grief and lingering resentment toward the people who'd upended our lives. But having someone to talk to who actually understood that kind of pain, it gave us both a measure of peace. On the final evening, Donna and I enjoyed dinner alone, just the two of us. Later, we curled up on the couch together, undisturbed, in a quiet that felt earned. By the end of the trip, we'd both decided we wanted to keep seeing each other. The kids agreed, loudly and without hesitation. That night, I finally accepted it was time to shut the door on my marriage to Sarah for good. I no longer needed camera footage or surveillance. The DNA-stained undergarments, his and hers, were more than enough. Update 6. Back home, Sarah looked drained and irritable. Maybe if she'd come with us to Colorado, she might have recharged. Our trip had been nothing short of incredible. After catching a glimpse of her that first night through the cameras, I stopped caring about what she was doing. It simply didn't matter anymore. I called Jeff and told him to finalize the divorce documents and serve her at work. The girls reacted just as I thought they would. They'd watched the slow collapse of my relationship with Sarah for months. The contrast between our tense household and the easy warmth I shared with Donna hadn't gone unnoticed. Eventually, Hannah asked the question I'd been expecting. So, what happens to Miranda and me now? Where do we go? I pulled them both into a hug and said, "You two have been everything to me from the day you were born, and that's never going to change. I've requested full custody in the divorce. My plan is for us to stay here, in this house. You'll keep going to your school, hanging out with your friends. I'll still be making your dinners, helping with your homework, and being here whenever you need me. And you'll see your mom as often as you like." I continued, "You'll both have a voice in where you want to live. During the custody process, the parent who's granted legal custody will stay in the house until you've both graduated and moved on to college. It's your call. Just remember, your mother and I both love you. No matter what decision you make, this house and your school routine won't change." After a moment, I added gently, "You don't have to answer now. This is a big choice, and you should take the time you need. For now, why don't you take my car and grab some dinner? Give your mom and me some privacy. Trust me, you don't want to be around for the conversation we're about to have." Once they'd driven off, I looked at my phone and saw the string of missed calls and unread texts piling up. I already knew who it was. Rather than ignoring it again, I decided to get it over with and called her back. The moment Sarah answered, there wasn't even a hello. She was already shrieking into the phone, her rage so intense it felt like it might melt the device in my hand. I didn't try to cut in. There wasn't any point. I just let her go, screaming, blaming, threatening, until she ran out of breath. She hadn't left any space for me to speak anyway, and once she finally paused, the only word she managed to bark out was, "Why? How could you do this to me? Don't you love me anymore? After everything I've sacrificed? For you? For the girls?" Her voice trembled through the phone line. "Why won't you come home so we can talk this through?" Then came the click. The line went dead. I didn't need to wonder what would happen next. I already knew. And sure enough, within minutes, she came charging through the front door, eyes ablaze and shouting. "Why?" I stayed calm. "You've been meeting Keith Miller every Tuesday night. Who knows how long it's been going on? What did you expect would happen?" I didn't raise my voice. Colorado was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to wipe the slate clean. But you chose Keith over your family. That was your call, not mine. Now you live with it. I stayed composed, my voice steady. Pack whatever you need from the house and check into a long-stay hotel while we sort this out. I'm not going to toss your clothes into the yard or light them on fire. You'll have full access to the girls. Once you're settled, find a lawyer and review the divorce terms I've put together. I believe they're fair, but you'll decide for yourself. I looked her straight in the eye. From this point forward, the only conversations we need to have are about the kids or logistics. There's nothing left between us, just the divorce. Then I walked into my office, shut the door behind me, and listened as she raged through the house, dragging luggage, bumping into furniture, slamming whatever she could. What I didn't hear was the sound of her crying, and that, oddly, cut deeper than I expected. Not because I wanted her back, that ship had long since sailed, but because her silence said it all. Whatever we'd once been was well and truly gone. There were no tears, not from her, not from me. My next step was to secure the house, change the locks, reset all passwords and entry codes. During the divorce, her anger never let up. But it wasn't sadness fueling it, it was resentment. She was furious I got there first. She wanted to be the one to file, to paint herself as the strong, independent woman ditching the dull, predictable bookkeeper. Instead, she became the unfaithful wife left behind for cheating. That wounded her pride, both in her career and in her image. Therapy was never something she wanted. And honestly, neither did I. We were finished, burned out. Whatever we had once shared had long since bled dry. But unlike a lot of men, I came out on the other side in better shape. Hannah and Miranda chose to stay with me, no hesitation. They still visit Sarah occasionally, maybe once or twice a month, but they hate when she starts digging for info. Does Dad talk about me? Do you think he still misses me? The girls just roll their eyes. I keep my contact with Sarah to an absolute minimum. If she's dropping off or picking up the girls, I make myself scarce. She never cared about my small bookkeeping firm, always acted like it was beneath her. Her focus was on shielding her retirement plan and that deferred compensation she figured I hadn't discovered. She was wrong about that too. She also hadn't realized she'd be the one footing the childcare bill now, and that her bank's health insurance was far better than mine. As for the Hyatt meetings, I stayed quiet. That truth would be useful later. When she left, she took anything she thought was upscale or valuable. Everything else, the worn-out stuff, she dumped on me and the girls like we didn't deserve better. She didn't even take the family portraits, just left them behind, as though we'd want to preserve a shrine in her honor. I'm sure she's still stashing money somewhere, but I honestly don't care. All I ever wanted was my kids and my business. She was no longer part of my life, not even a footnote. Then someone, no idea who, sent video proof to Keith's wife. That set off a wildfire in the local legal scene. Suddenly, every divorce attorney in town was charging double. Keith and Sarah eventually moved in together, choosing a sleek, upscale apartment in a trendy neighborhood. Of course they did. After the dust settled and everything was finalized, I invited Donna and her boys to spend the weekend at our place. It wasn't physical. We were careful not to send the wrong message to the kids. But there were small gestures, holding hands, quiet embraces, warm moments between the chaos. Donna brought something I hadn't realized I needed: peace. We both knew where this was heading. She already had her own place, no complications there. The only wrinkle? Our 16-year-olds. They got along almost too well. Their rooms were right next to each other. So yeah, we stayed alert. They needed our full attention. Donna held a remote position as a registered nurse, working for a health insurance provider where her main responsibility was evaluating medical claims. Wanting to support her professionally, I created a custom home office that catered specifically to her workflow and comfort. Final update. 12 months later, I contacted a longtime friend of mine who happened to be employed at the CPA firm responsible for auditing the bank. I confided in him, revealing that 2 high-ranking bank officials had been misappropriating company credit cards to finance their secret affairs, during business hours no less. He thanked me for the information and proceeded to conduct a detailed forensic audit, eventually presenting the evidence directly to the bank's president. Rather than dragging the situation into public courtrooms with a fraud trial, the bank chose to quietly terminate both individuals. However, they did take formal action by alerting the bonding company, which began pursuing restitution for the financial abuse. That firm has now launched legal efforts against Sarah and Keith in order to recover the misused funds. Additionally, both were permanently denied future bonding eligibility, effectively ending their prospects of working in the financial sector ever again. Having squandered a significant portion of Sarah's retirement funds on their reckless lifestyle, the pair was forced to move out of their trendy, high-end apartment. The bonding company's recovery case is still active as they continue pressing forward to reclaim the stolen money. Keith's personal situation took another hit when the court mandated he continue paying spousal and child support, obligations that will severely eat into his income, assuming he manages to secure another job at all. It's unfortunate for him, really. If he had simply waited for Sarah's prenuptial agreement to lapse, things might have turned out differently. As for Sarah, she has found work as a paralegal at a law firm that focuses exclusively on divorce proceedings. She's gained a surprising depth of knowledge, both in legal procedures and in the emotional fallout of broken marriages, which makes her quite useful to the firm's clientele. Yet every evening, after counseling others through their separations, she returns alone to a modest apartment, haunted by the memory of how she sabotaged her own marriage. She no longer garners attention from the ambitious professionals, successful physicians and business leaders, whom she once believed were more worthy partners than me. On the other hand, the pointless investments she used to mock had climbed to a value exceeding $2 million by the close of the year. The future looks especially promising, with Donna and me set to tie the knot in mid-June.